We have Dr. Layla Hussein, who is the founder of the Dahlia Project. We're also joined by Simmy, who has her own YouTube channel, which is called Simmyssecrets, and it very much focuses on personal development, but also raising awareness of toxic relationships. Alongside that, in her spare time, she actually does volunteer and give up her time as well for the Sharon Project, which is a national charity that supports South Asian women affected by abuse by forced marriage, by coercive control. Something very close to your heart.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on what Dr. Hussein just said there when she talks about you really have to almost hold up a mirror and raise these issues?
Yeah, I think that education is really important on this topic, because from a young age you're not taught that it's wrong. So that's why the Sharon Project specifically runs the Our Girl Project, the Our Girl School Project, where we go into schools and colleges and universities to actually raise awareness of these harmful practices, so that young girls, as well as boys, because it does happen to boys as well, are aware that forced marriage, coercive control is also wrong. So once again, it's about teaching young kids from a young age that they shouldn't be in these situations, and it's okay to seek help. And there are charities like the Sharon Project that can help you if you are in those situations.
Let's talk about if you're up for it in terms of your own personal experience. What happened to you? Because clearly, no one just decides that they're gonna volunteer for a charity like this. And I suspect a lot of people will be thinking, hold on, you're a young woman, you're a social media influencer, you're on YouTube. You know, why would you then decide actually you want to also support and volunteer for a charity like the Sharon Project?
Yep. So with regards to the Sharon Project, it's really close to my heart, and the reason why is because I was in that emotional toxic relationship, and I realised that one of the hardest things is to get out, because you become like you're in a daily cycle basically, and you feel as if you're letting yourself down, your community, family don't understand, and it's very hard to reach out to kind of get that help.
When you say that toxic relationship, what do you mean? Was it kind of abusive? Was it controlling?
So
what
emotionally
happened?
abusive, physically abusive, it can be. So I focus a lot on narcissistic abuse. So this is where there are 3 stages, and I go to this in full depth within my YouTube videos to raise awareness of like red flags. So it can be controlling what you wear, controlling how you look, how you go out into the public, who you talk to.
Is that what kind of happened to you?
Yeah, that's what happened to me, and it's those stages that people need to be aware of, that is a form of emotional abuse. So the first stage would be that love bombing stage, where they kind of treat you like a princess, give you all that attention. The second stage is that devaluing stage, which I just spoke about. So once again, playing on your insecurities, and you don't realise that you're in it until your health starts eroding, until you get that anxiety, depression, you feel lonely. And that's what made me start my educational videos, because there's so many young girls within the Asian community who won't open up about it. They won't even realise that they're being controlled, and it affects you so much on an emotional level, that if I could be that voice, then people can go to my channel and they can actually see those red flags and realise and kind of correlate to it.
This is what we're talking about if you're just joining us from the sports.
If you've just tuned into the show, in this hour we've got a topic of discussion, talking about 2 very important topics that both Sunny and I are highly passionate about, and we've discussed over the past 9 years that we've been here on BBC Radio London, and sadly it seems very much that things are not changing, or perhaps maybe now due to social media people are more vocal about it. We've been discussing forced marriages and coercive control. That's because a man of Pakistani descent became the first father to be convicted of coercive control after he put his wife and his daughters through quote-unquote hell. Joining us in the studio, we've been speaking today to Dr. Layla Hussein. She's the founder of the Dahlia Project. We'll be finding out what they do in a moment. We've also been speaking to Simmy, who has her own YouTube channel, Simmyssecrets, focusing on not just personal development, but raising awareness on toxic relationships after she herself identified that she was in a toxic relationship. She really wanted to let people know, especially young women and men, what it is like to go through that. And let's bring the wider context and conversation about coercive control. Earlier on, Simmy, you mentioned that having been in a toxic relationship, it's become a key passion of yours to really educate young girls about toxic relationships. Do you think a big part of that is to do with control? This idea that, especially if we were to focus on for just a moment, earlier on Layla mentioned, Black community, Asian community, we do have this whole kind of higher patriarchal, societal, idea of the man having the control in every aspect of life. Do you think that then trickles down to young men and the way that they think they need to be in relationships?
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like it is very based on control, and within society it's always seen as the man controlling the women. And if you've seen that within your childhood growing up, like within your parents, and 9 times out of 10 it does stem from childhood. So you see your parents growing up where your father will control your mother, you'll grow up like that and think it's okay to do that to your partner. And it's all about, once again, educating people from a young age that it's not okay. And it's very based on control.
When you look at the conversations you've had since you've got out of this abusive relationship, how much did you realise that this abuse started at a very young age, not just from the time you got into this relationship and it was all nice and roses, and then the abuse started? But this, you're saying you were conditioned to tolerate a certain amount of betrayal or trespass against you as a person from a young age.
No, I feel like even whether it's the opposite, like the partner, or whether it's yourself, I feel like because you think it's normal, or you're growing up within a culture where it's almost normal for a man to control a woman, you think that you deserve that, but you do not deserve that.
Do you believe that men are just as much victims to this as well because of the way they're treated? For example, if a parent is treating the son a certain way, they're thinking, hold on, why are you having a go at me? This is what I've been, this is how we're supposed to be, and hence I'm just doing what I've been taught. So do you blame the parenting, or do you also blame the individuals for not having enough sense to recognise this? Or is everyone in the same boat, and we, like said, you have to use different language when we come to talk about this kind of abuse?
So I would blame the parents from childhood, but then ultimately, as whether that's a girl, whether that's a boy, grows older, they should have enough conscious awareness to know what they're doing is wrong, and that's what it comes down to. It's that level of conscious awareness that they're not aware of what they're doing.
But also, because we're talking about power here, okay? And I think sometimes when we talk about this issue, we forget the power of the matriarch as well.
Yes.
Because the matriarchal women, but we have to remember they got to that point because they were abused. So
that's what the scary thing is.
Absolutely.
That's where the scary
the matriarch is actually much more powerful than the men at some point. But what people fail to understand, it's how she got to that point. And this is the cycle that's been passed on over and over again. This is what the girls are watching, thinking, okay, I need to get this abuse so I can have that power one day. And it's the same thing. So I think it's also important to talk about the power of the women also playing this. I think, yes, the patriarchal system is there, but there are adult women in these households who play a massive role.
But can I also mention that when we talk about coercive control, it happens in almost any relationship, if you are from any background, from any sexuality, because there is going to be a dominant partner. And sometimes you don't realise when someone who's just being, that's my nature, I'm the one who comes and I do this. Then everyone knows their roles, and there's happy marriages there. We don't want to confuse people to saying when someone's being controlling, they're actually making you feel, dehumanising you slowly. That's the key here, before anyone thinks, well, I cook and clean. I don't expect my husband or my partner to do it because I like doing that.
It's consent. We're coming back to consent here. And remember, you clearly mentioned there are signs. The moment you know you're in an abusive, controlling relationship, it's the moment you wake up, you're feeling anxiety, you don't want to be around that person, you're scared to say what you're about to wear. The moment you're in that kind of situation, I mean, I love cooking. When I cook for my brother, it's nothing to do with control or feminism. I just like to cook for him. And I like my chicken. You know? And let me tell you, I got told off by a lot of feminists. Oh, you like to cook? I just like to cook. It keeps me sane.
Nothing wrong with cooking.
So there's nothing wrong. It's not about power. So the idea that when someone just walks into a room and you're already in a panic state. And I think it's important to remember, if anyone's listening to it, it doesn't just happen with families. It happens in your workplace.
So I was going to,
this goes further than that. And let's not assume this is only happening to Black and Asian communities too.
Can I ask you as well, since you started your YouTube channel, and I'm glad that you've mentioned that it happens outside the Black and Asian community, you have so much interaction, and someone
Yeah.
must be DMing you. I'm not asking you to reveal their names and who
Yeah.
they are, but did you see a difference when you came and being honest about how many stories were told to you
Yeah.
about this kind of control? And people were shocked, like, because I know that when I tell someone, listen, this is what's happening to you,
Yeah.
from where I'm standing,
Yeah.
they didn't recognize it. How many people didn't recognize the story that you're just telling?
So the people who are very close to me would recognise that, my friends, because once again, you have that low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, people within the workplace. You don't want to tell people within the workplace as well, so they'll pick it up, but they won't necessarily know what's wrong. But a lot of people are actually open about this topic. So since I've came out about it, a lot of men in particular do message for online coaching, because I do give that now as a service as well. So initially I got online coaching through the Sharon Project, and that didn't just change my life, it ultimately saved it. So that's why I'm now giving back to other people, and that's on an international scale.
Why do you say that saved your life? What was it about it? Did it kind of open up maybe questions that you had? Did it give you answers to how you were feeling and how you were being treated in that toxic relationship?
It almost gave me that realisation that something was wrong, and it makes you realise that regardless of if you're a professional with 2 law degrees, it doesn't make a difference. You can still suffer from toxic relationships. And once again, within my YouTube videos, I talk a lot about those 3 key stages. So the first one is that love bombing phase, second devaluing, and then the third is discarding you. And you get to a point where they threaten to leave you in a way of control, to have control of you, that you can't do better, and then ultimately you feel like you can't do better and you can't get out. Can
I also ask you, is there another factor to that as well, when they take you away from your loved ones and your friends, isolate you, and like, it's just me and you against the world, baby?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden the people that you trust and you had advice from you, you don't trust them anymore. That kind of, is that what you're talking about in the beginning stages?
So within
like taking you away from your comfort zones and the people you trust?
Yeah, no, definitely, because they do isolate you to a point where you don't believe that your best friends are telling you the truth, because they're
Right, the worst kind of emotional roller coaster anyone
it's
could
actually
go
worse.
through.
It's worse than physical sometimes,
Right.
because society accepts physical abuse. They kind of acknowledge it. But this kind of abuse, it's silenced. And also, this is why I keep coming back to our schools, because 8 hours of the day, our kids are taught about stuff that are really, nothing's going to amount to anything. But if we were taught about our relationships, what this is the kind of relationship you should be avoiding, this is what you shouldn't be doing, you might even have left home earlier than you might even intervene with your parents.
Exactly.
But it's the fact that this is so normalised. Actually, abusive relationships are so normalised than healthy relationships. In the society we live in, that's still unfortunately the case.
And Simmy, you're really nodding away to both what Layla and also Maisha have said. Have you ever had, or would you ever, I should say, talk to that in the, let's call this individual the toxic relationship, let's call him Simon, I'm just choosing a random name, to your ex, would you ever now address it, or do you think you've cut it out and you just need to move on? Because the other thing to really address in this, and someone might be tuning in, is yes, you yourself may cut away from that individual, but until sometimes that individual doesn't really realise that this is something that they have been doing, they themselves can't better themselves, and the sad fact is it may well then happen to, again, it's a vicious cycle,
Which
right?
is very common.
Which is very highly common. Have you ever mentioned it to your ex?
So I think that's the biggest issue, because you can mention it to them, especially when they're a narcissistic abuser, so that's another form of emotional abuse. You can mention it to them, you can change things about yourself, you can do as much research as you want, you can tell them, oh, let's do counselling sessions together. But ultimately, they don't want to change. And it's so hard to then try and change someone when you have such like low self-esteem. To try and change someone, it's impossible, and that's why the best thing to do is to walk away, because you will emotionally drain yourself trying to change someone, and it may never happen. So you're living in that fairy tale of, you see their potential, but the reality is you are going through that emotional abuse, you are getting physically abused, and how much can you take until there's nothing left to take anymore? So it's kind of valuing yourself, getting your self-worth back up, so that you know you don't deserve a toxic relationship. Because even when I was in one, I tried on a consistent basis, but nothing never changes unless it's professional support.
His arguments, were they reinforced by the extended family, which come in and undo half the hard work that you're trying to do? and also reinforcing his point of view because that's his family.
Yeah.
And your family, you're married now, we're talking culturally now,
Yeah.
you're married, that's your family, you should look after your family.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So you
Yeah.
almost are more isolated
Yeah.
than maybe in other setups. Did
Yeah.
you find yourself in that kind of battle as well?
So with me, luckily, it never got to that stage because
Right.
it was only a year long. So it was just between me and him. But to get it to the stage of getting introduced to the family, it was too toxic because if
So you never got that far?
No, we didn't even get that far
Right.
because I was too hesitant to even take it to that level based on what was going on.
It's like,
Yeah,
it's so
amen.
Our education system is so toxic. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, it really puts girls in danger. I really believe
This is I think our 18th show on this subject,
Yeah.
and every time we bring different aspects to this conversation, and everyone thinks, oh, you talked about forced marriages, domestic abuse. There's so many layers.
Yeah.
You can't do it in one hour.
No,
Do you get what I'm saying?
I'm so happy to hear you are a radio show that
Yeah.
constantly talks. I want a radio
Oh,
show.
yeah.
to that as well. You're really brave and strong for even calling today.
Yeah.
And one thing that really helped me when I got out of that toxic relationship was to write a letter. Even if you never send it to that person, as long as you have a letter that reminds you of the reason why you left and things that happened within that relationship, you can read that, and that is your reason for not going back. And mine was
Lovely,
25 pages long.
Wow.
Just within a year.
Turn into a book, maybe.
Yeah, that's the next step. That's the next step.
Time is
Adele made this
against
into a book.
She did.
Yeah.
Time is against us, but I wanted to finally just take a moment for all three of you to give you an opportunity to talk about your projects. So,
Yeah.
Simmy, the videos, how often do you post them? It's youtube.com/Simmyssecrets.
Yeah.
So how often can people kind of find out further details?
So if you message me via my email, so that's simmyssecrets@gmail.com for any life coaching, that can be with regards to identifying red flags, whether you're in an emotional abusive relationship and you want help to identify if you're in one. Once again, I'm also a big believer of the law of attraction. So once we focus on kind of rebuilding your new values, focusing on moving forward, what are we going to do? Getting rid of those limiting beliefs that person has installed within you as well. Also go on my Instagram, which is Simmys_secrets. Make sure you DM me, reach out if you do need help, and just make sure that you subscribe, like my content, share it as well.
Subs, man. That's the game. That's the game. Make sure you subscribe. Leave the bell. Leave the bell. Bell's important.
You need to teach me how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm learning myself.
Right, we're going to have to